Hi, this is Senator Malcolm Roberts, and we're live from the little town of Widgee, which is near Gympie in the Gympie region. And I'm with Rob Atkinson, who's a food producer in our country, and also Jim Wilmot, who's another food producer. They've also got another role, and they're members of the Property Rights Association of Australia, Property Rights Australia. And I'll tell you what they're doing here in a minute. I'll just give you a brief rundown of a couple of things that have happened during the week. The first thing is the Australian Energy Market Operator has said that the default market offer price will increase for electricity 24%. Many people will be affected by that. Now, if you think that is large, and it certainly is, 24% is virtually a quarter. That's an enormous amount for electricity prices to rise. But if you think about the actual base that it started on many years ago, that is an astounding increase. And it's been relentless, and it will continue to be so. Now, price is starting to come into people's thinking. We mentioned these things would happen 20 years ago. When all this climate rubbish was going on, this is where we said we'd end up. But it hasn't finished. The price will continue increasing. But we also talked about unreliability of wind and solar, because they depend upon nature's whims. And what we've seen now is that something else has come up, and that's the National Reconstruction Fund, which is a Labor dream for revitalising manufacturing. No policies, just a fund. And the Greens have already bullied Labor into saying we can't use the National Reconstruction Fund for coal or gas. So we're well and truly down the track. We've had it. That means we'll only have more wind and solar. Well, guess what's been causing the problems with the pricing of electricity in this country? Wind and solar. So we're going to have this, the problem is now going to be leading to more solutions. So with that in mind, wind and solar are scattered energy generators. They're not like a hydro dam or a nuclear power plant or a coal-fired power plant, which is concentrated. And that's why they're very high energy density. So they're cheap and they're reliable. Wind and solar are distributed. So there's several problems. First of all, they're very low generation capacity. Secondly, their actual capacity is as low as 10% when you need it in the evenings and in the mornings, peak times. So instead of just needing a certain amount of wind and solar, you need 10 times as much. That's what's driving the destruction of prime agricultural land in this country. In addition, because they're scattered, you need lots more power lines, which is adding more to the price for wind and solar and disrupting farmers. So can you tell us what's going on up here? Because we're in Widgee to listen to people and also to address a forum tonight. What's going on?
Well, Senator, the plan this government, state government has, and probably federal government too, if it be known, but is, the pumped hydro Barumba Dam and the effect it has on...
I can feel a pandemic coming on, a pandemic of pumped hydro. We've got Snowy 2, which is enmeshed in overruns. It'll probably end up being over $20 billion. It started off at $2 billion. Malcolm Turnbull's dream. Then we went up at Youngalla just recently. That's a fantasy to distract from problems in Mackay due to the state government. Now we're here at Barumba Dam. It just sounds so impossible. But pumped hydro is taking water, pumping it up to a dam, letting it flow down and generating electricity through turbines, and then pumping it up again, letting it run through. And it takes 1.3 to 1.5%, 1.3 to 1.5 times the amount of power that you receive put back into it. So it's a bullshit exercise.
Well, we learned that this morning, didn't we, Malcolm? We learned that it costs more to pump it up the hill than it does what it generates coming down the hill.
And the only reason it works is because peak prices are so damn high now because of the loss of coal and the taking over of industrial wind complexes and industrial solar complexes, that it's now cost effective to generate expensive electricity during the day because you can get it back in the evening. So it's all based on lies. So tell us about the latest lie from the Queensland Labor government.
Oh, which one?
This mess with the transmission lines.
Well, the transmission lines, there's three or four proposed corridors, or one of them will be the corridor, but they've alarmed a lot of people in this the local communities here west of Gympie that, you know, which corridors are going to come down, who's the hundreds of farms here. The average size of these farms would be a couple hundred acres. It's pristine cattle country and farming country.
And croppable, some of it.
And some of it is croppable. The valuations, unfortunately, will fall because, and sales have almost stopped because no one quite knows where the power line's going to go.
Up at Youngala, Netherdale, the little township of Netherdale, which is the side of the dam, they've already seen that banks will not lend people there now because their property is going to be resumed. Is that happening here?
I'm not sure. Jim might have heard of that.
Well, look, I know there's a lot of sales that have stopped, and
It's a beautiful country.
it is beautiful country, and really, like it's affecting the community fabric. Like you've got these three proposals going north from the pumped hydro to the main Waluga substation that's surrounded by these, let's call them solar industrial complexes.
You got it right.
I got it right.
Don't call them wind farms or solar farms because farm is an attractive thing. This is rubbish.
And
you hit the nail on the head.
And look, a lot of this solar farm up here around Waluga especially has got a lot of damage. It's running at about 52% capacity because of the impact of a recent hailstorm. And
that's 52% of the panels that are operating.
That's right.
But capacity, during peak times, solar panels and wind turbines are at 10% of their capacity.
Yeah.
So you've got around 5% of the capacity.
Yes, that's right.
And who pays for this?
We, the taxpayer.
And the electricity user. That's why electricity prices are so damn high.
Yes.
5% utilisation, basically, of the capacity. Sorry, keep going.
Well, it's just, look, I guess it's the way, the state government through their corporation power link has basically bullied people. They've given them no time for consultation. A week before Christmas, they received a letter. And only through community pressure, they've run more than one community drop-in session, but these community drop-in sessions, they're scripted. People can't ask many questions. There's no detail. There's no compensation framework. And it just pits one side of the community against the other. Some people want the line to go here, some people want the line to go there. So what we're trying to do is unite communities. One, to fight back against these ridiculous schemes.
Deceitful, dishonest schemes.
That aren't feasible and are destroying the fabric of the community. What really gets me, Senator, is that there's perfectly, if they had to run these lines, which I don't support anyway, there's perfectly good state land which they can run these high voltage lines along without affecting any private freehold land. And they come back and say no because there's high environmental values. You've never seen such a big environmental mess as the state land that runs adjoining.
Lantana, noxious weeds,
wild dogs, poor fire management. The community really thinks, if the lines did run through that state land area, it'd be better managed anyway. So it's a better environmental outcome.
Well, I know you're speaking the truth because you've demonstrated for many years you're working as a volunteer on biosecurity issues. You've really pumped that along. That's been your number one concern.
Definitely.
Property rights as well.
That's right. Look, the performance of state governments, its land stewardship performance, is absolutely disgraceful.
And that's easy to understand because no bastard's responsible in the state government. No one can be pinned down.
Yes.
So of course it's going to let go. Whereas you as farmers, if you let your land go, who pays?
We do.
You do. So that's perfect accountability there.
It is. Look, the groups today, they want, it's a state-owned project. It should be on state-owned land. Why run it through private property when there's a perfectly good corridor there?
Exactly, Jim. And, we all know that national parks need every bit of help they can get. They are so mismanaged, Senator. It is disgraceful. I've got a little national park near Gameri where I live, and, it hasn't been burnt for over 20 years. So it's just a time bomb waiting for the right day and the right ignition source.
And these things, if they're not burnt regularly, you get a huge fire load, and that's when koalas, kangaroos, goannas are really killed because it's so severe, it's so intense, the fire, that they can't get away from it.
It's an extinction zone when that happens. And this beautiful farmland, like we're looking out here, I saw kangaroos hopping just through there. Now, this is where animals want to live. They want to live in a renewed environment that is renewed by fire and grazing. That's what renews our grass. old rank stuff in the national parks can't support anything.
So your point is, so far, what I can hear is that they don't consult. They just come in and tell you. They're now trying to divide the community by putting one transmission line route against another route
True,
against another route.
exactly.
So they're hoping that you will stay fragmented, whereas what you want to do is unite and
Yes.
counter the bastards.
Yep.
They're already hopelessly mismanaging their land they've already been entrusted to by the people. So you need to get people together and unite them and get the facts, because they won't tell you the facts about this case, will they?
No, they
It's
won't.
another pipe dream.
It is. And really, when it comes down to it, too, the question is, like they say, no, we can't run it through the state land because of the high environmental values. But our question, too, from a property rights perspective and a community perspective to a lot of the action groups, well, what do they value more? You know, maintaining the value and the fabric of community.
I can answer that
cohesion.
question repeatedly. They value human life very, very low, and human community and human existence very, very low.
Yes.
They'll put lizards, fungus, bugs, critters ahead of us as humans. And by the way, you mentioned that they control these community forums. What they've been doing since Tom DeWeese from the United States, I've forgotten his organisation, has been exposing UN Agenda 21 since 1992 when it came out. And he has made many videos. I can still remember some made way back in the 90s, where he's shown how they control meetings and how they script the meeting to make sure that you don't get a say, but you leave thinking you've had a say. So tonight, it's not a state government meeting.
No.
It's not a UN meeting. It's you guys running it.
Yeah, we've invited all the pollies. Only a couple of you had enough guts to show up. We invited the minister, the state minister.
Any reply?
Only an automated one to say received my email. So we wanted everyone to have the chance, you know, to tell people present what the plans are for this area.
They're probably being very cagey about the plans because, as I understand it, there's no detail. There's not even a broad concept yet that you can argue about. Is that right?
Well, it's a very general type concept.
But there's no meat on the bones of that concept.
No, there isn't. No, they've extended the consultation time, and really, what we're about tonight is working with the action groups. It's all grassroots, Malcolm. It's not Property Rights Australia coming in over the top. It's working alongside the action groups that are developed by the community, for the community, in the fight back. And so we're just not going to be rolled over by the bureaucrats. We're not going to be just taken to task. We're going to stand up against the bureaucrats and their processes, against the lies they tell us. And we all know they're telling us lies. You can just go up to the national park and say, well, what's pristine about this? There's plenty of evidence there. You know, landholders were only too happy. You didn't have to drive far into the national park to see the mess. And you just have to go around and talk in the community on the social impact of this whole program, which hasn't been taken into account by the government and their powerling puppets. To me, it's disgusting, and we're going to help the groups unite in the fight against this.
So the powerling puppets with a pandemic of pumped hydro.
That's it.
That's pretty clever, isn't it? So now, is there anything finally that you want to say about the whole thing or about any aspect of it? I'll give you each turn and then we'll close it down.
Well, this is mostly all freehold country, the privately owned country that we've been driving through and looking at. And I just can't understand why a state-owned project can't stay wherever possible on state-owned land, and where it can't, to find the best pathway forward, whether it's underground, to try not
underground cables.
Yes, superconductors they're called. You know, there's other ways to do it other than put these monstrosities across beautiful paddocks, and with, you know, it's just pollution really. And yeah, that's my thought.
And I want to really emphasise what I was told when I first arrived here by Jim and by Rob, that they're not opposed to these things. They're proposing better solutions.
Correct.
But I am opposed to the fundamental thing, because these transmission lines would not be needed if it wasn't for the lies we're being told about wind and solar and the costs of those. And they're now in a panic because they suddenly realise you don't have the sun at night and you don't have wind all the time. So then just make up for that with pump storage. But this is not feasible. So the final word.
Look, this rally is all about stopping the lines. It's all about saying no to power link. The gates are locked, and we're saying no to the lines. But most importantly, the community needs to know this is just the start of the footprint that's going to be rolled out across these beautiful regions to satisfy green ideology with no real positive outcomes, but to split communities and produce terrible environmental erosion.
That's a really important thing to mention, because as part of this, what do they call it, the hub?
Yes,
That's
it's
the
a
latest
renewable hub. Yes,
Renewable hub.
How
That
lucky we are.
sounds wonderful, doesn't it? These things cannot be recycled. Wind turbine blades, solar panels cannot be recycled because it cuts too much energy to do it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is this whole region will be littered with solar complexes and wind complexes. And you'll have these hideous monstrosities. The more they add in terms of wind turbines and solar panels, the more the price of electricity will increase. This is about killing our country as it is. And we're subsidizing the Chinese to do it. So what we've got to do is get back to honesty on climate, get back to the science, get back to the data, and get back to honesty in the energy market as well. And thank you for standing up. We'll be back again.
On you, Malcolm. Thank you.